With the release of the version 5.1, we have 3 new 4-star weapons. But are they worth your time? My name is dphoenix, and in this video I will talk about every new weapon that came to the game with the new version, who can use them, and if they are worth the upgrade. Just before the video starts, all my links will be on the description, like my Twitch channel, where you will be able to win free blessings by participating on my live streams. But without any furthers, let's start talking about the 3 new 4-star weapons. The first weapon we are going to discuss is the new sword Sturdy Bone. This weapon will give you a total of 27.6% attack on its substat when on max level, which may not look like a lot, but to compensate it, it has a higher base attack of 565. And thanks to its passive, your sprint or alternate sprint consumption is decreased by 15%, and after using any of this, your normal attack damage is increased by 16% of your attack. Its effect will expire after triggering 18 times or after 7 seconds. Now that we know how this weapon works, let's talk about who can use it. For now, only 2 characters come in mind, and those are Ayato and Chlorinde. They both rely on normal attack to deal most of their damage, and they both move around a lot on the field. So let's check out how this weapon performs on them. Starting with Ayato. Surprisingly enough, this weapon is around 2% better than its previous F2P option, Finale of the Deep. And funny enough, is also around 2% worse than his best 4-star option, the Battle Pass weapon, Black Sword. But for those who paid attention, you might have noticed that the Black Sword was still at R1. But will it be a big difference if it goes against an R5 Black Sword? As you can see, the difference between them increased from 2% to around 10%. So in summary, if you are using Finale of the Deep and you manage to get this weapon, as long as some refinements, if you want, you can start using it. But in the end of the day, it's a small increase, so it's all up to you. But what about Chlorinde? For her, the situation is a bit different. Since already on the first test I calculated, this new sword performs around 6% worse than her previous F2P option, Finale of the Deep. But what if we turn it into a fair fight and we compare both of these weapons at R5? As we can see, if Sturdy Bone is at max refinement, it becomes around 3% better than Chlorinde's best F2P option. So just like Ayato, if you manage to get this weapon at a good amount of refinements and you still use Finale of the Deep, you can upgrade it if you want. For the second weapon we are going to talk about, we have the new Claymore Fruitful Hook. This weapon, just like the sword, will give you 27.6% attack on its substat and will have a higher base attack of 565. And thanks to its passive, your plunging attack crit rate will be increased by 16%, and your normal, charge and plunge attacks will have their damage increased by 16% for 10 seconds after a plunging attack hits an opponent. And after reading this weapon passive, it's clear that it's made for characters that focus on plunging attack damage, leaving us with 2 options for this weapon, Gumming and Diluc. Starting with Gumming, this weapon at R1 almost matches his other 4-star options like Rain Slasher, and in some cases deals a little bit more damage than Serpent Spine. Why do I say some cases? Simple, Serpent Spine provides a good amount of crit rate already, and in this case, since I test the same build for every weapon, Serpent Spine was giving me crits that were being wasted. But what if we compare them all to R5? As you can see, Fruitful Hook becomes the strongest option when the objective is to deal damage with your plunge attacks, surpassing Rain Slasher. So, should you change your build if you get this weapon? If you end up getting up some refinements and you use Rain Slasher on your Gumming, my advice is to change it because this passive fits way better for Gumming. But if you use Serpent Spine, I advise you to stick with it because once again, the build I used was wasting the crits Serpent Spine provides, so the competition was not totally fair. And what about Diluc? In his case, Serpent Spine even at R1 continues being his best 4-star weapon, with Rain Slasher being a good option that is more achievable for F2P players. But what about if all of them were on max refinements? Yeah, as we can see, not even being at R5 makes this weapon better than Rain Slasher. So, on Diluc's case, it will be better suited if you stick with your Rain Slasher, or better if you are using Serpent Spine on him. And for the last weapon we are going to talk about in this video, we have a new polearm called Mountain Bracing Bolt. This weapon will give you 30.6% energy recharge on his substat, with a high base attack of 565. And thanks to its passive, you will get your climbing stamina consumption decreased by 25% and your skill damage will be increased by 12%. But if anyone on your team uses their skill, which they will, trust me, your skill damage will increase for an extra 16% for 8 seconds. After reading this weapon passive, it's clear that it's made for characters that are focused on skill damage, leaving us with 2 options again, Emily and Kachina, who actually uses this weapon in the game cutscenes. Starting with Kachina, this weapon compared with the other 4-star options she uses, it's exactly a middle term. is around 10% better than Favonius, but it's around 30% worse than Kachina best F2P weapon Footprint. But maybe R5 will shake things up, right? As we can see, not even that is enough to make it better than Footprint. So, even though Kachina uses this weapon on the story, it still loses to Footprint R1 in terms of damage. But it's a usable option if you are trying to match both her damage and her energy requirements. And for last, we have Emily. As we can see, compared with both her best F2P weapon and her best 4-star weapon, this weapon is still around 8% worse at R1. But even though with Spear is at R5 already, both the Mountain and that match are not. So let's see how much that changes. It is no surprise to everyone that it would perform worse than that match, after all it's a crit weapon. But let's see. At R5, this weapon surpasses Emily's best F2P weapon and it's considered around 1% better now. So, if you end up getting this weapon to a max refinement, and you were using Missive Wind Spear before, you could upgrade to this weapon for its extra damage. So, what do you think about these weapons? Are they going to be worth farming and using? As we could see with most weapons, most of them end up being small improvements over previous weapons most of us were already using on the characters, and there is not a lot of them that justify going after for a damage increase. But it's like I said, if you end up getting some of them pulling on weapon banners etc, at least you know that at max refinements, most of them end up being an improvement. Thank you so much for staying until the end. If you like my content, don't forget to leave your sub and to like this video. 98% of you are not subscribed, and supporting me with a sub would make my day, and I will be glad to have you on that side from now on. I hope I could help you with this video. A special thanks to my members for trying to support me even more. Don't forget to give a look on my Twitch channel and participate on the live streams to have chance of winning free blessings. Thank you so much for staying until the end. My name is Dphoenix, stay safe and have an amazing day.